I now recognize the member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, sometimes the House of Commons can be a harsh and unfair place, and the 42nd Parliament was particularly cruel. Between the election of 2015 and the date, 6 months ago, on which the Commons rose, we lost a number of colleagues. Jim Hillier, who was only 41 years old when he passed away at his Hill office in March 2016. Maurice Bélanger, dans le rêve d'être président de la Chambre.
Who dreamed of being leader of the House, but unfortunately he was taken away by an untimely disease.
Whose promising career was cut short by cancer in September 2017. Gord Brown, who was taken from us by a massive heart attack in May 2018. Mark Warawa, who passed away just days before the House rose in June of this year. But when we left here, there was at least one fixture on the Conservative side of the House who seemed eternal. Deepak O'Brien, the member for Calgary East Forest Lawn and the Dean of our caucus, was, in June, seemingly as healthy as he'd been in years, and he was on his way back to serve what would have been his 8th term in office. But within days of the final sitting of the 42nd Parliament, Deepak was informed by his doctor that he had terminal liver cancer, and within a few weeks of that announcement, he was gone. And so Deepak was deprived of the tribute that we give to fallen comrades who leave us while they're still in service. For those colleagues who are new to the place and who have never seen it before, a bouquet of white flowers is placed at the member's desk, along with a glass of salt water to symbolize tears and a lemon to signify bitterness at their untimely departure. It is a testimony to the fundamental decency of this place that the House leadership of all parties granted us the time today to give tribute to Deepak. Deepak had a huge personality, and no one ever forgot the experience of meeting him and his remarkable wardrobe of scarves for the first time. But for the benefit of new members, here is the Coles Notes version of Deepak O'Brien's extraordinary life. He was born in Africa, in what was then the British colony of Tanganyika, on July 5th, 1950, and was educated in India and England, becoming an air traffic controller and later an accountant. At the age of 27, Deepak immigrated to Canada, eventually landing in Calgary, where he became a successful business owner. After dabbling in municipal politics and provincial politics, he was elected the MP for Calgary East in 1997. Deepak served as an MP for more than half of all the years he lived in Canada. There aren't many countries in the world where that kind of thing can happen. Deepak was a pioneer. He was Canada's first Hindu member of Parliament and a member of the first generation of Indo-Canadian MPs whose legacy today is that numerous Canadians of South Asian origin, both first generation and Canadian-born, representing a diversity of faiths, are serving right now in this place under multiple partisan banners. In opposition, Deepak served in too many roles to enumerate here. In government, he spent nearly a decade as Parliamentary Secretary for Foreign Affairs, traveling the globe on behalf of Canada. As someone who had called 3 continents his home before he came to Canada, he brought a uniquely cosmopolitan perspective to this job. He was helped in this regard by the fact that he spoke 3 languages in addition to English. Malheureusement,
Unfortunately, French wasn't part of his 3 languages, despite his heroic efforts.
An eminently quotable man. Much of what he said was wildly politically incorrect and might perhaps best not be repeated in the House of Commons by a white guy. But I can draw your attention to his most famous utterance. Deepak is justly famous for advising the government to wake up and smell the thing. Now that Deepak is gone, I'm never going to be able to ask him what the thing actually is. But here's a guess. Maybe the thing is to remember that we are here today and gone tomorrow. Maybe the thing is that our sojourn here, whether in Parliament or on earth, is brief. Maybe the thing is that While we can't all have parliamentary careers as long as illustrious as Deepak's was, we can nonetheless each strive to make a contribution as large as the one that he made. Let's take Deepak's advice and wake up, realize that now is the only moment that exists, and work every day as our beloved colleague did to make this Parliament and this world better, starting this very day.
The honourable member for Don Valley West.
I'm honored and I feel deeply privileged to rise in the House today on behalf of my colleagues in the Liberal caucus to remember and to pay tribute to the Honourable Deepak Oberoi. His sudden death on August the 2nd, took my breath away, and I think that of everyone who sat with him in this House. I offer our deepest condolences, particularly to the members of the Conservative caucus who feel this loss most deeply. You are, however, not alone in the mourning this loss of a valued colleague and a dear friend to all of us. My last conversation with Deepak happened just 4 weeks before his untimely death. It was, as might be expected, at the Canada-India Foundation's annual Global Indian Award dinner. Deepak walked into the room that night with both a deep and genuine humility and at the very same time as if he owned the room. He wore his trademark scarf. He extended warmth to both friend and stranger, humor to all, and the occasional jab to me and the one other Liberal who was there. We were, after all, honoring the former Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, so our side was justifiably underrepresented. Deepak took great pleasure that night in the award offered to Mr. Harper, but I was quick to tell him that the CIF award and honor belonged as much to him as to the former Prime Minister for his constant care and attention to both India and to Canadians of Indian descent. Deepak was an internationalist, an air traffic controller by profession. He seemed happiest getting on a plane to represent Canada and the government in literally almost every country of the world. He brought with him strong diplomatic skills, a passion for human rights, a deep and abiding care for the world's poor and those needing Canadian development assistance. And this was genuine, persistent, and important to him. It was a long journey from his birthplace in Tanganyika, or Tanzania as it is now called, his education in India and the UK, to his true home, which he found in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. The member for Ottawa South told me today that while Deepak was a great citizen of the world, he was even more a grateful Canadian, whose love of this country fueled every day of his life as a parliamentarian. Dean of the Conservative caucus at the time of his death, he loved his party and the opportunities that it gave him to succeed both personally as a newcomer to this country and to remind all of us of the tremendous gifts that immigrants and refugees bring to this country. He was passionate about inclusion, insightful about discrimination, and had an innate sense of fairness and generosity. Mr. Speaker, when I was appointed Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I went to him for advice. He had a lot of it to give. He had held that position longer than any other parliamentarian, and he was generous with it. He loved to tell me stories of his travels and meetings with world leaders, but not to promote himself as much as to entertain me. He loved to tease and even to torment me, taking great glee in his gentle but persistent partisan ways. As a member for Scarborough-Guildwood reminded me this morning, he was not shy about media attention and happily used the moniker Deepak from CPAC. There were many firsts in his life. He was proud to be the first Hindu elected to the Canadian Parliament. He was proud of both his African and his Indian heritage. He was proud of his many election victories and on becoming Dean of his caucus. He was a proud recipient of becoming a member of the Queen's Privy Council. But I think he was most proud of the voice he provided for newcomers to this country, encouraging them to follow in his footsteps, to take their rightful places in leadership, in community, in business, in Parliament, the professions, and in government. Deepak, you befriended me as a new member of Parliament, an opposition critic for multiculturalism, a novice committee chair, a neophyte parliamentary secretary. And many in this House had the privilege to call you friend. Today, we all remember you with fondness. We commit this day to maintaining your passion for justice and human rights and inclusion. And especially we give thanks to your beloved wife, Nina, your very proud children, Preeti, Kajal, Aman, your adoring grandchildren, Dav and Jacob, and Evisha, for sharing you with the people of Calgary, Calgary East, Calgary Forest Lawn, the people of Canada, the people of the globe, and allowing you to offer your gifts to make this world a better place. Thank you, Deepak.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Bécancour, Nicolas Sorel. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we're paying tribute to the memory of Deepak Oberoi, whose passing over the summer left all parliamentarians in shock. Mr. Oberoi served this House for 22 years, and he served the citizens of Calgary Forest Lawn during that time. 22 years in federal politics requires a real desire to serve one's fellow citizens, a real love of community, and a great availability for those people. It also means a lot of sacrifices, even more so for one's family. Families agree to lend their loved ones to the nation without knowing if that time spent apart will ever be paid back or not. Mr. Oberoi was known for his sense of humor and his inclusive values. I have wonderful memories of him, mainly from committee in the early 2000s. He was always well prepared, respectful, and an excellent communicator. A couple of years ago, I remember that he told me, "Louis, you should retire at the next election. I'm tired of being the Dean of the Conservative Party. I want to be the Dean of the House of Commons." So he liked to tease me in that way whenever we ran into each other. He started out as a Tanzanian immigrant, and he ended up as the Dean of a major federal party. And that story can be nothing but an inspiration for younger generations. He passed away at the age of 69 from cancer, which took his life in just a few weeks. His death reminds us that there's still so much to be done to fight this horrible disease, which, once again, has deprived us of a devoted colleague, a father, a grandfather, and a spouse. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois, I want to offer our sincere condolences to his family, loved ones, and his Conservative Party colleagues. The great French author Alexandre Dumas once wrote, "Those we have loved and lost are no longer where they once were, but they are always with us everywhere we go." Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, I am honoured to rise in this House as the Dean of the Democratic Caucus to pay tribute to the late Dean of the Conservative Caucus. I know that Deepak planned on running again and was looking forward to the campaign in the hopes of returning to this chamber in this fall. His sudden illness and passing shocked us all. I wish to extend our deepest condolences to his family, his friends, and his colleagues, and the people of Calgary. As we have heard from the tributes in this House, we have lost a remarkable colleague. His accomplishments were significant, Mr. Speaker. Deepak Oberoi served this House with distinction for 22 years. He was elected 7 times, becoming the longest-serving MP of South Asian descent. Over the years, Deepak served as Parliamentary Secretary for Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation, and International Human Rights. He represented Canada ably on the world stage. New Democrats may not have interpreted the world the same as Deepak, but we respected him and his service, as did all of us, for our Canada. When Deepak was appointed to the Queen's Privy Council by former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, he was proud to have the honourable title and never shy to remind anyone, especially during hallway debates in the parliamentary corridors. Mr. Speaker, the story of Deepak isn't only about a Canadian service to his country, it's also the story of perseverance by a Canadian who faced racism in all aspects of his life, including his professional and political life. In fact, he ran for the leadership of his party because it was important for him to send a message to Canadians that every Canadian, irrespective of their ethnic background, should have an equal opportunity to participate in every facet of Canada's political process. During this campaign, media characterized his campaign as, quote, the fun uncle who keeps on stealing the show, and, quote, charmed. We are fortunate he lived long enough to see a racialized Canadian elected as a leader of a major federal party. And while he rarely agreed with the NDP, he understood and appreciated the importance of a diverse House of Commons that respected all. We will miss his trademark scarves. The one I wear today has the saying "Deep Package" on it. I wear it with humility and pride for a man that showed us great respect in this chamber. We will miss his humor and his laughter. Parliament and all of Canada lost our fun uncle, but not before he mentored us all. Thank you.
I invite the honourable members to stand to observe a moment of silence in honour of our dear colleague, the Honourable Deepak Oberoi.